welcome to our Friday and 301st episode of the Dobbin Bandits. I'm Orrin Phillips. Yeah, the guys did a fantastic job. Brian Michael Bendis, great stuff, number 300. But the show continues and the guests keep getting better and better. And today we have Mr. Michael Troy. Michael is a YouTuber, a comic book reviewer, and an independent comic book creator. Right now, he is putting together something for the Kamiko book, Elementals. I don't know if anyone, I certainly remember the book. It had such a cool story about the different elements coming together in the form of superheroes. Very well done. You can hear Michael's passion about it as he talks about the project. And it's really fascinating, all the pieces that are coming together for what he wants to do and how he knows how to do all this stuff, because I certainly wouldn't. So let's hear more about it. Here is Mr. Michael Troy. Mr. Michael Troy, YouTuber and independent comic creator. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this. I love your show, so it's
Thank
great
you.
to be here.
Yeah, we love yours too. And so let's start at the beginning. How did you first discover comics?
Well, I was really, really little. I feel like, it's funny because I interview people on my show a lot, and I feel like a lot of people kind of have the same sort of comic journey. My older brother collected comics. This girl down the street sold him comics for like 2 and 4 cents. A lot of them have the cover ripped off, so she must have got them from, I don't know, the dumpster at 7-Eleven or whatever. And I just immediately fell in love with the art. They taught me how to read, and I always had an interest in art. I remember actually taking a ballpoint pen and like drawing hair on Spider Woman when she appeared with her skull cap without her hair coming out, just so she could look like she did in the cartoon, the way that I loved her so much. So I was born to draw comic books.
So at what point in your life do you say, you know what, maybe this is a career I'd like to pursue?
Pretty early on, I'd say pretty much by like the age of 12, my brother and I were both artists. We've spent a lot of time drawing a lot. For Christmas, my mom was very supportive. She was always giving us art supplies and things like that. So we were really excited about that. I kind of always wanted to be, a comic book artist from a very early age. I uh, I'm from Ohio. My parents divorced, and we lived in Las Vegas for about 5 years. And when I was 12 years old, I actually made my own comic book and had it printed at the local printer and sold copies at Page After Page in Las Vegas, a very well-known comic book store that probably just hid it behind the counter after I left because God knows it was terrible. But, you know, um, it's funny because with that sort of trajectory, you would think that I'd have a lot more comics. But then um, by the time I was like graduating from high school, I thought I wanted to be an actor. So I had this, on one hand, I wanted to be an actor. On the other hand, I wanted to be a comic book artist. And so I don't know why I didn't throw astronaut in there or something else ridiculously unattainable at the same time. So um, that's kind of where my interests went.
Now, were you into the big two, DC and Marvel, or the independent books of the 80s and 90s?
I was very, 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 very much into the big two, mostly Marvel. My brother was pretty much a Marvel zombie and, swore off, DC is for kids and, they're for dorks and they're all square and everything. And then we would get our comics at, 7-Eleven on the way home from school. And I saw the new Teen Titans, I think it was number 30 with Tara joins the Titans and they're adorning the logo and it's this beautiful George Perez art and I immediately snatched it off the rack and I was an unapologetic DC convert after that. So, and then actually at that comic book store in Las Vegas, because you wouldn't find it on the 7-Eleven racks was my introduction to indie comics via the Elementals, something we will be talking about. But uh, they were like a superhero independent comic book. The art kind of reminded me of John Byrne, who was like my absolute favorite comic book artist. And so I cite that as sort of my gateway into the indie comic books. My first and foremost love will always be superheroes, but it's funny, especially at this stage in my life. It's like it's I don't feel like I'm the audience for Marvel and DC that much anymore. So I'm finding a lot more entertaining like indie books and like smaller publishers and things like that.
It's interesting you say that. Do you find the comics today, not from DC and Marvel, not to be as much fun as when we were kids reading the books? A little more, dark and gloomy.
I think there are, I think that I think we're probably close in age, and I think that like we were collecting comics at a great time that made it wildly addicting. You know what I mean? We had the same creative teams from great, long runs. So we sort of knew what we were getting. We felt like we were in safe hands if we knew the artist and the writer. Um, uh, somebody we were loyal to so you felt like you were part of it. You felt like you were a family. Now it's just like sort of like 5 issue miniseries done to collect in trades. And if there's a new direction on the book, it lasts for probably 12 months before they're rebooting and stuff. And it's hard to find like find your tribe if the tribe is like dispersed every 18 months and sent on different directions in a way. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's like, but then your perception is different when you're older too. You see with different kind of eyes. So it's like, that's the other thing I discovered. It's like, I'm so beholden to like, John Byrne and Chris Claremont and Paul Smith. And when it comes to the X-Men and, some kids, like I was talking to Matt Dunford, and his Spider-Man is like the Clone Saga, Ben Riley Spider-Man, and like old guys like us cringe when we hear that. You know what I mean? But I feel like or whatever era of X-Men you come in, if you're coming into the X-Men and Jim Lee's X-Men, you're always going to love that. That's always going to be your favorite. You know what I mean? I think that stands for music. That's why people's musical tastes don't mature much, and why I'm still listening to Madonna 40 years later or whatever. So you know what I'm talking about.
100%. So, what was it about Elementals that drew you in as a reader?
If first and foremost, it's the art. When it comes to comics, it's always going to be the art first and foremost to me. But aside from that, they were superheroes. They looked really cool, and and it was very mature. It was like very ahead of its time. It was very Twin Peaks-ish in a lot of ways. It was dark. It had mature themes. The characters had sex. You didn't see a lot of that in the normal mainstream comic books. And just really great writing from Bill Willingham, and just like, I don't know, just really engaging. I just was there every month. It was a great story. These four people who just are randomly killed by these elementals so that they can be resurrected and given power to confront this evil that's brewing in the universe. So that's kind of cool, and then it sort of becomes the X-Men in a way. They move into one mansion and they train and become a team. So that's always appealing to me, I feel, you know what I mean? So I'm a sucker for a team book. I can't lie. Like Alpha Flight is one of my other favorites. Oh. And I know that's obscure as well. So
So how does the door open for you to be part of resurrecting elementals?
Well, so basically, last year I did a Big Bang anthology. This is my big claim to fame right now. The Carrie Callan cover, the Jim Rugg cover, treasury size anniversary tribute to Big Bangs, arguably an obscure 80s indie superhero book. So I thought maybe this is my thing. And, actually, so The Elementals was published by Comico, and Comico went out of business through just because they tried to make, ironically, the independent company tried to make the switch to the newsstand and get like wider distribution, and it killed them. So, so don't ever try to do that, Indy. Do not aim high. But so Bill Willingham was kind of leaving before that, and he let them take elementals as part of the deal by this man named Andrew Rev, who also owns the property Youngblood. But part of the deal, and then there's a YouTuber named Dan Shaheen who interviewed Bill Willingham on his channel, and they talked about all this. So the structure of the deal was that he would have to continue publishing Elementals to retain the rights, or else it would fall into public domain. And 30 plus years later, he's never touched the property, never done anything with it. So on Dan Shaheen's YouTube channel, Bill Willingham declared Elementals public domain and said, I'd love to see someone go out and make, a new Elementals book, basically. He made news last year for trying to say that he put Fables into the public domain, which is kind of a different story because you have DC Comics involved and they have a different opinion on this situation. However, as an old Elementals fan and somebody looking for my next obscure 80s project to reacquaint the world with, my eyebrow raised and I said, oh, well, why can't that be me? So that has been in the back of my brain for a while. I was going to do another project after Big Bang that fell through. And so I thought, well, I'm going to try Elementals. So, so arguably it's public domain. Arguably I could possibly get my ass suit off, for trying to do this. But that said, it's the book that I'm putting together live on Kickstarter right now is sort of like a scrapbook or a yearbook. Like if People Magazine does their tribute to Jaws or whatever, this is my tribute to Elementals. It's going to have old art, new art, interviews, articles. Dan Shaheen, who I mentioned, is working on a new interview with Bill Willingham. I found a bunch of original art that the owners have provided me with scans to use in the book. So there's going to be like a quasi artist addiction section. There's some pages that were like pre-Elementals that Bill had done. I'm going to ink and color one just for the fun of it. I have a lot of new pinups that are great. Michel Fife, indie darling Michel Fife, had done an Elementals commission for a fan a while back, and he's letting us use that as a pinup. Craig Hamilton is part of the book. He did a pinup a long time ago for the Elementals, and I checked on the original owner, and they gave me a scan, and I recolored that for that. So it's going to be a gorgeous book. Anyone who got the Big Bang book knows that artistically, it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be a fun keepsake, just a one-time deal. And if Elementals is public domain, I also encourage, I'd love to see somebody pick it up and run with it. People have been threatening it. And so this isn't necessarily a relaunch, but just more like a tribute. You know what I mean?
It sounds like there's so many moving pieces to this. Where do you begin? Like, what's step one for you in this project?
Step one for me is reaching out to Bill Willingham to see his thoughts on it. He doesn't really want to be involved. He was maybe going to do a new cover for us if he had time, but he's like a very busy person, and I feel like he must be a Virgo or something because he's very scheduled to the minute, and so I don't think he's going to provide a new cover for us, but I have a piece of art that was the cover for Amazing Heroes from back in the day that the original owner is letting us use. That is sort of obscure, so it's kind of and it's my favorite piece of Elementals art ever. So it kind of worked out good that he's letting us use it. So then I reached out to Bill, told him what I wanted to do, told him what I did with Big Bang, told him what I wanted to do with this Elementals tribute book. Told him I would love to have him do the cover and do an interview for it. And he said he sort of agreed. He was happy that was somebody who was doing the project. So we have his blessing. We have his blessing, if not his involvement, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So he's here, but I don't know. You know what I mean? I think that the best we're going to get is this new interview with Dan Shaheen, which would be great. I'm also probably going to excerpt the interview that he did where he, talked about releasing Elementals to public domain. He did warn me that, there's a chance that Andrew Rev could make a stink about it and try to stop it. But the thing is, it's a small campaign. I'm not here to get rich. I'm not here to make any money off of it. It's a love letter to the elementals. I literally just want to make enough money to get it printed and put it in the hands of the people who want it. I make the books that I want to read, and this is for me as much as it is for any other Elementals fan. But you don't have to be a fan. Like, I feel like Elementals, like Big Bang, was one of those best kept secrets. You know what I mean? Like, I urge people to seek it out and read it. As Dan Shaheen stresses over and over again, it was so ahead of its time. It just holds up really well. You know what I mean? It's still readable.
I think it's kind of blows my mind, like how you had the foresight, to reach out to these different people to get the artwork, just to all the different pieces to put it together to make this book. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Well, I had a lot of great like situations. Like Big Bang was like, Big Bang was like my baby. I'm so proud of it. But I also felt like it was sort of my lit. It's like I've been in and out of comics for decades, like very minimally. Like I was, inconsistent at Top Cow and stuff like that. But nobody ever knew my name or my comics. And I thought, with Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker doing their property. I wanted to showcase what I could do. And so this is what I can do, like, do you trust me to do something else? You know what I mean? So hopefully people see how great Big Bang is and know. But the point I was trying to make is like, I was gathering like old art and new art, both Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker have old art pieces that I recolored in the book. One of my favorite things that is in the book is a Don Simpson pinup that he did of Megaton Man and Megaton, Big Bang's Megaton, like sort of saying like, isn't this going to confuse people? Which ran in the Megaton Archives, which was published by, what do you call it? By Image a couple of years ago, which collects like the Megaton series. But I was like, oh, this would, and the way my brain works, it's always working. It's always like, oh, I can do this with this or that, which helps when you're editing a big anthology jam. But I thought it would be so cool if I could get it for this anthology and color it. Then I'd get to color one of my heroes, Don Simpson, and also it was directly tied into Big Bang. So he gave permission, Gary gave permission, I colored it, it's in the book, and I'm really happy with it. But then I got other people on the book, like because Big Bang is a little obscure, so I wanted a little star power and name recognition to sort of draw people into the Kickstarter who may not be totally familiar with Big Bang. That's why we got, Jim Rugg to do a cover, and we got pinups from Nick Cagnetti and Marty Keene. So it's a great book.
I would say, what's the biggest thing you've learned from putting together Big Bang that you were able to take into this project?
Probably like not trying to do too much at once. Like I think I threw a lot of different things at the wall, just seeing what would stick. And I think that like just sort of like and like now that I'm done with it, I'm like, wow, that was kind of crazy that I pulled it off, because there like you said, there was so many moving parts. And Eli Schwab at Cosmic Lion Productions, we did it together, and he really helped me a lot with that. So but I learned a lot about laying out books and about the printing. Like I don't know, like I had to have the treasury size. I had to. Big Bang has never had one before, so and I loved it. Like Cosmic Lion had done some treasury side books called Ghost Agents, and they just looked great. The art looked so good. I remember them from when I was little. The Super Friends one, and of course like the Muhammad Ali versus Superman, which they just had a facsimile. And damn it, if it doesn't look gorgeous. I mean, they're just fun, but it was a huge pain in the neck to ship them. A lot of them got damaged. Not a lot, but a few of them got damaged, which is always upsetting. So, it's like, I guess it's the only thing I learned is that just like make sure you plan it out very thoroughly. Like there's always going to be things that come up, but I don't know. I'm just happy with the way it came up. I learned a lot, and uh, I don't know how much I would do differently, you know.
Why was it so important for you to get Big Bang out to the masses to let people know, hey, these are some really wonderful books and wonderful stories out there?
Because I after I had worked on a couple of fan projects, one of my friends, Brian Payne, reached out to me and he said you should contact Gary Carlson from Big Bang. And I was like, why do I want to draw The Simpsons? And he's like, no, idiot, not Bongo, Big Bang. And I was like, oh, duh, Big Bang. Of course I know who Big Bang is. So I reached out to Gary, and very much in his tradition of, you know, being open to working with artists and other talent, you know, we agreed to work together. And we started working together and coming up with something, and it just wasn't working for some reason. Like I just couldn't draw the script. I think it was like my lack of confidence as an artist, since I hadn't drawn much in a long time. And but it was nagging at me. Like I didn't want to, you know, let the lid of my coffin close without working with Gary Carlson, because I knew he was, you know, a kind of a big deal in the indie comic industry. And I was interviewing him for my channel, and as he was talking, the idea came to me. Just like he was talking about these 64-page annuals that introduced Big Bangs, and about how they were all anthologies, and working with artists. And I was thinking about some of the anthologies I worked with. And I was just thinking, I was like, God, Big Bang is so great. And I was like only quasi aware of it. And I was like, so it seemed a little obscure. And I just thought it was so good. And like Gary has done so much and just worked with so many artists, like so many people. Chris Samney worked at Big Bang, you know, Eric Larson, Rob Liefeld. You know, there are others that escape me at the moment, but I don't know. And then doing the research for the book made it even worse for me, because I was like, oh my God, these aren't, you know, I think a lot of people dismiss Big Bang as like knockoffs or ripoffs of like Marvel and DC characters, but they're more like homages or amalgams. I mean, if you look at, I mean, Superman and all the original superheroes pretty much ruined it for everyone else. You know, it's like, it's hard to think of something completely original. But what I love about Big Bang is even if they're almost or amalgams or whatever, they're so unique into themselves. And it's such a deep homage, and there's always like a twist, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the art is always amazing. Like he did a Teen Rex story, and like the artist like sort of mimicked Jack Kirby. So the homages kind of run deep, and it's just Gary Carlson's like a great writer and a great editor. He was so good to work with on this book. Like everything had to go through him. I was like very protective of his stuff, and you know, he was just like a dream. If anything was wrong, if ever I had a question, he always knew exactly the right answer, or he knew how to fix it instantly. And he just has great instincts as an editor and a writer. And I have tons of respect for him. And it was such a dream to work with him.
That sounds awesome. Now, you mentioned your channel, and you do a great job spotlighting a lot of these independent creators out there. How have you seen the independent boom take off in the past few years with Kickstarter and, you know, projects like that?
It's taken off greatly. I mean, I think that there is this huge, like, if somebody hasn't done it yet, I think it's worth like researching and examining, like, just because I feel like that is like the share of comics now, or the large majority of comics. You know, even Matt Wagner and Kelly Jones just did their Dracula book, which I'm still it's in my read pile. But you know, it's a great way for people like me, or you know, to get comic books made that normally wouldn't get made. And you know, it's kind of a win-win, because the people who can't afford to make their comics are getting it paid for and printed by the people who want to read them. So, and there are so many talented people and so many great comics out there. You know, but that said, it's like I always kind of want Marvel and DC to be there. I always feel like there's sort of will be like the hub of comics, you know, in a way. I said, like, I was very excited when X-Men 97 was doing well, and the X-Men relaunch. People are excited about that, because I feel like when the X-Men is doing well, the whole industry is doing well, just because if people are excited about comics are, sort of like potato chips. You know what I mean? Who goes to the comic book store and just gets one? You know what I mean? If I am going, I'm getting X-Men and X-Force and, Batman and Detective and, whatever. And so if it's good, then, it's golden. And, it seems like you've seen and you've been to, I need to make it to a con soon, but the comic book conventions seem to be thriving, and the positivity surrounding comic books. It seems like there was a lot of negativity for a while, a lot of dark things coming out of comics. And, it happens with anything, but it feels like the energy has definitely shifted towards a more like return to just a love of the comic books. You know what I mean? There's lots of creators making comic books that they love, and people are out there celebrating them for it.
I consider you someone who has sort of their finger on the pulse of the scene. How does someone stand out in such a crowded field of independent books? Because, if you go on social media, it's, post after post after post of people putting their comics out there. How do you make a comic book stand out so people put their eyes on that?
I mean, that really is the question, it's very hard. I think it's like, especially if you are an independent person, I interviewed Michel Fife for my channel, and he just came out with his amazing, manual almost, creating Cobra, where he goes into detail about creating comics, all the aspects of it, and promotion is a huge part of it. You know what I mean? When I definitely feel like having a YouTube channel probably helped spread the word about my Big Bang campaign. I think that YouTube is definitely, there's a lot of great comic book channels influenced by cartoonist kayfabe, which I think was great for comic books. It definitely got me back into it and inspired my channel, during the shutdown or the lockdown, as it did many people. But I think having a good online presence is important. I think I think at the end of the day, just having a really good book is like the best part. Like, like have a good name, something memorable. And have your logo be clear and memorable. It is hard because there is a glut of, comics and art. And you go to the comic book store and you look at the wall and what does stand out, you know what I mean? Especially, and I hate to bag on like modern comics, but they all have this weird sort of sameness to them. And a lot of them don't stand out to me. So the ones that do are great. You know what I mean? And it's like uh yeah, I feel like most of the great comic books I read are definitely like word of mouth or just artist friends I know, or I'll see Kickstarter campaigns that appeal to me. But I'm still reading, uh, the Marvel and DC books that are exciting, like Spider-Man Reign by Kari Andrews, and Mark Silvestri did his Batman book and stuff like that. So I'm always gonna do that. But it's like you have to be shameless tenacity is what you need to. It's like, just like hitting people up. Can I go on your YouTube channel to talk about my book? Giving people copies to review helps. People send me their books, and I'm always happy to do it. I'm always happy to spotlight an indie creator. I think if you have the wherewithal to put pen to paper or, stylus to iPad or however the hell you do it and make a comic book, then it's worth something. You know what I mean? And I love all kinds of comics, all kinds of art. So you do have to get yourself out there, but it depends on what you want to do with it too. I mean, you can realistically build a small audience and consistently publish, like somebody like Michel Fife did for years, self-publishing is creating Cobra, or, like a Dave Sim, or I don't know who else,
I want to bring up a point because you mentioned something about trying to catch someone's eye. And what I like about Big Bang, I like about what you're doing with the coloring is there's a brightness to it. I had spoken to Steve Rude, and he said that today all the colors in comics seem so muddled and dark that it's hard to really catch anyone's eye or to see what's really going on. Do you find that to be true as well?
100%. I bitch about that all the time in my reviews of comic books. Color always comes into it. I always admire an amazing colorist. There's a way to be bright and not be garish, and there's also a way to be sort of dark and muted without being so murky and muddy that you can't even see the art. Like it just breaks my heart for the artist when I see their line work destroyed by like almost black shadowing by the colorist or like overly rendered coloring. So but that said, there are a lot. I do think that is a lot of the trend,
Mhm.
but then again, there are a lot of great colorists out there now who kind of go against that. So it was the trend for a while, but I think I feel like color has been like really good in comics lately. So I think we're moving away from it, hopefully.
Hopefully. When you're getting a book to review, what are some of the elements that you're looking for in the book? I know you mentioned color before and story. Are there any other things that really, that you want to hone in on when you're doing a review?
It's funny you should say that because I feel like I did learn a lot from Big Bang. Like my huge thing with it is I wanted it to look professional, and I feel like it does. And I think there's a lot of things you can do to go. A lot of things you can do to make that happen. And I think lettering is a huge aspect of it. If you do not use any of like the free like fonts that come with your computer or whatever, they look cheap, they look boring. Go to Blambot, pay $7, pay to have it lettered. Hand lettering is always a bonus. It always looks great. If you can hand letter, I say do it. Um, Make sure that the logo is legible. Make sure that the cover art looks good. Um, Make sure that you introduce, it's like I think back to like people like Jim Shooter and like just what they did at Marvel, pretend like every comic is the reader's first comic book, introduce your characters, let the readers know what their powers are, show the characters using their powers. How do they relate to each other? Give us a little bit of their background. For God's sakes, draw backgrounds, establish a setting for where your characters are. Make us believe that they exist in this place. Do not just have talking heads and, you know, uh, I like there are so many things. You know what I mean? There's so much like I see a lot of amateur mistakes. I think when I see a comic like I'm not going to name it, but one I did not too long ago, I feel like they put everything they want. That a huge amateur mistake is putting everything you want to do into a comic into one comic. You know what I mean? Spread it out. I think sometimes I see that in movies too, like too many gimmicks of like a first time director is kind of what I equated to. So I don't know.
I was about to just ask you the exact same thing. Like, because if someone thinks, well, this might be my only shot to put this comic out, and they just put so much into the book that it just sort of gets overwhelming at times.
It's like Coco Chanel said, like when you're going out, look in the mirror and take one thing off before you go out. And that's like really good advice that could be parlayed into, editing. I think it's funny because I think editors have a mixed reputation. Good editors are amazing. We know so many great, good, amazing editors like Chris Rael and comes to mind. Um, uh, knowing like, yeah, like don't overwrite it. Like, nothing turns me off worse than opening a comic book and it looks like a novel on the page. You know what I mean? There's my dog barking. He always starts during
Oh,
during my Zoom chats. So that was just
right.
one time. Sorry.
Now, when I just want to get your opinion on this too in the independent community because you see it come up once in a while, but AI finding its way into comics. What are your thoughts on that? People using that to create.
I loathe AI. I'm abhorrent to it. It's a such a I've done videos about it. There was Todd McFarlane did a cover contest and somebody entered AI art and it actually won. And I don't know what if there was ever like what the fallout was from that, but huge criticism for that. I forgot a recent comic book convention. What's his name? Colin Kaepernick was there, um,
Oh,
researching. He wants to create this new manga comic book company to help people who can't make comics on their own make it through the use of AI. I think it's disgusting. I think it has no room. AI, it would be okay if the AI created the art onto itself. But what it does, it takes images from John Byrne, Dave Cockrum, George Perez, every artist out there, and mines them to create these new images. And I don't know, I just think it's a huge cheat. It's like worse than an athlete using steroids, in my opinion. It's like it's such a bad direction. I think there's a place for AI, um, but it's just not in comics. I mean, you know what I mean? They're soulless. I can pick an AI generated art out immediately in my newsfeed just because it just lacks soul for some reason. I don't know. I'm just against it. How does that sound?
I agree with 100%. I think
It's just wrong.
yeah, I totally agree with you. So, besides Elementals, what other projects do you have coming up for folks to look forward to?
Well, the other one of my big claims to fame was I did this Lady Gaga tribute comic book about 12 years ago. It was called Going Gaga. It was just like a fun little thing I printed myself for, I don't know why the hell I did it, but just because I love Lady Gaga. And so one of my artists on the Big Bang book, Todd Black book, has talked me into doing a sequel to it. So it's going to be much smaller. I'll probably just print it myself and maybe 100 copies or something. I figure I kind of want to do like 2 books a year. So I do have another obscure property in mind, um, anthology in mind after this. I'm trying to reach the proper people right now, but it'd be more of a 90s than an 80s. So maybe I'm moving up in decades, like maybe, but I'm still open to obscure 80s properties if anybody has one that they want me to make a big anthology jam for. So I did talk to Mike Gustovich, Justice Machine, and he wasn't down for that. And who else did I ask? I forget. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's not my total shtick. But other than that, I'm trying to amp up my YouTube channel, Michael Fitztroy TV, because I feel like after all these years, I should have more than 2,000 followers, or subscribers, but I don't. Um, and right now, I'm just knee deep in this Kickstarter, trying to get this Elementals book made. So I hope you put a link to the Kickstarter in the description of the video. That would be awesome, and people go and get this book because it's going to be totally awesome. And but other than that, I do have a couple of Big Bang ideas in mind. I've kind of pitched to them. We haven't really found a complete follow up yet, but there's a few things I want to do with them. So other than that, I would love to go and be an editor at Marvel or DC and make big fun anthology books for them. But hey, you never know.
And we are back. Yes, that sounds like a very cool project. And I will put the link for it in the comments for this. So you can go back it because I believe it ends on October 3rd. So be sure you get in on that. It sounds great. I love the fact that he's taking these wonderful 80s independent books and giving them new life. It's so important, especially for the creators who did all this stuff. And what did for Bang Bang Comics was phenomenal as well. So, Michael, thank you. Can't wait to hear more about what you're going to do in the future. And guys, time's running out. Time's running out. You got to vote. You got to get out there and vote. CBCAwards.org. Go do it. Type it up. Takes 2 seconds. Takes 2 seconds. You see our name, Dog and Bandits. Click it, please. Vote for all the wonderful shows out there. Explore these shows. Check them out. See if you like them or not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But they're all great. All these people are putting a lot of time into these shows. And if you could take a couple of minutes to vote, it would mean the world to us. So this wraps up our 3-episode week or have another one coming up. We're going to be rolling like this for a while now. So be prepared. We have a lot of cool stuff. And we will see you next time. Have a wonderful weekend.